2, 3, 4.
Shoo up, my sugar, shoo up, my little butterbean.
Down, diddy, down, 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 diddy, diddy, down, diddy, down, down, do I do it, down, diddy, down, down, you're so pretty, pretty, down, diddy, down, down. Ain't it funny how fun love can be? Diddy, 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 down, diddy, down, 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 diddy, diddy, down, diddy, down, down.
And the Norfolk Knitting School is in session once again. I'm going to tell you the truth. I did 3 shows yesterday, and I was so exhausted. I guess I've gotten weak because when I was teaching, you would teach at least 3 in a row before you got a break, supposedly. And I mean, it was much more intense than this. You know, sit down, be quiet, go out, go in, go do. But I was just exhausted, and I didn't do all my preps last night, so I was up this morning trying to get everything done. So I think I'm okay, but some of this is going to be a little bit off the cuff. But I think I'll be okay. Now, and patience with me if I'm not. All right, I brought in last time. I was showing you the I chord, letter I chord. And I did a little bit of it. I'm going to do a little bit more now. This is an extremely versatile thing to make. And I'm going to show you on one of my sweaters, which oddly enough, I didn't think to do this on this sweater when I still had the yarn left over. And I wish I had, but I can probably do something in a contrasting color. So I'm going to do a few more of these. And all you do, you need double pointed needles because you're going to be sliding back and forth. So ordinary knit. Oops. Okay. Okay. I bring it back down to here. I take the yarn and knit again, and it forms this wonderful little cord that is just a great. I mean, you can put this on even your commercially made sweaters. You can make it a different weight of yarn. I'm still using the Michaels Impeccable. Now I'm coming to the end of my string here. Let me just do this last one, and I'll bind it off. All righty. Okay. All right, so I don't know if I have enough to bind off here. Let me see if I can do it. Now, you're going to see my thread knotted in the middle on a bunch of these swatches. That's because I was running all these swatches, and I was just trying to, sorry, I need to bind off there. But you don't want to do that. You want to attach that yarn at the end of the row. Okay. All right. And hopefully you won't be in a situation where, there we go, all righty. And it makes a nice little point. Okay, now here is what I'm going to show you. This yarn means quite a bit to me because I started making something else with this, and this is oversized. Not a whole lot, I have to admit, but it is oversized. I started making something on this yarn, and I was going through a really, really bad time, and I couldn't finish it. I just couldn't and it's not that easy to work with because it's what they call slubbed. So these little, I don't know if that makes any easier for Katie to see. Hang on, Katie, there we go. I think you can see the slubs make it a little bit hard sometimes to pull through the needle, and I just, I didn't cut it up, but I just put it away. And then when things were better, I found it, and I ripped it out, and I made this. But I wasn't thrilled with the way this came out, and I don't know why, but when I made these, sorry, I just don't like the way this looks around here. I don't like this. And I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know why it came out like that. Maybe with the gauge and all, I don't know, I just don't like the way that looks. This is kind of at an angle too. This wasn't right. So when I wear this, I put a big pin over this. And it never occurred to me until the other day when I was making my I-cord that one of the things you can use, you use it for decorative, but what I could have done, I could have just simply covered that up. It would have probably looked better. Wait a minute. I'm sorry, here's the right side. Actually, the back side doesn't look bad. But I could have just simply taken needle and thread, regular needle and thread, and just sewn that right in there, and it would have covered all that up, and I think it would look pretty good. And I think I may still do something like this if I can find maybe something variegated with these colors in it, because, and this was, I did not use a pattern for this. Again, this is something that any of you that have learned, now, okay, V-neck, that's true, okay, but as far as the rest of it goes, or if you had wanted to make a square neckline, which I had showed you the other day, that's all this is garter. This is stockinette. This is your ribbing. And over here, I did the drop shoulder. Actually, I decreased in here, but this is just straight, and it just kind of hangs down. And stockinette, and then I did here, to go with this, I did garter. So, and you can do that. You know, you can say, okay, I'm going to do ribbing at the neckline and ribbing down here and do something else over here. Most of the time you see the ribbing on all the hem lines or edges, but that's what I did with this one. So just to show, and then, or if you don't have an issue, here it goes. If you didn't have an issue, say, with, you know, I'm going to cut this off so we don't see this thing here. Now, normally you don't, when you do have a knot like that, you don't cut it off like this because you want to weave in the ends. But I'm just, you know. So, and the other thing that you can do with this little guy is you can just kind of twist him around. Let me cut this off. Now, if you're going to use this like this, obviously you'd make one longer, or maybe you wouldn't, maybe depending on what you want to do. I would get something called fray check, F-R-A-Y check. And that is something that you can dab on here, and it will harden and be invisible. Dab on there, sorry. And then it hardens it up, and you don't have to worry about that, you know, coming loose. So what you could do with this is you could just take this and make a little thing like that. I should have brought the needle and thread with me, but I forgot. So you can apply these any way you want, anywhere you want. If I'd wanted to do this, something like this here. In fact, I did do a Christmas sweater. I think I did a cranberry, one of these, and I was a regular sweater. I think it was one that I bought. It was dark green. There we go. Oh, very good. And of course, this is all going to be stitched from the back. And I did a real big one, and I made it into a bow. If this is too well, I made it into a bow, and then I had the ends coming down. So I had the ends coming down. There's the bow. So I made the ends coming down and going down the sweater, and I loved it. It was a lot of fun. It looked good, and so I just left. These were bigger loops, obviously. I just left these loose, tied it back here, and then sort of tacked it going down the sweater. So this is a great thing to make. I mean, you can use these for a lot of different things. All right, and I have one of my other sweaters to show you. And again, what I want you to believe and understand is that what was that on Saturday Night Live when they had the wrestlers and they were German and they were saying, "Hear me now and believe what I say." They were saying something like that when they were, telling people to exercise and, All right. I got this idea from a pattern, but I did something different. Now, how this is done is this is knit across. So I'm going to turn this and show you that this is stockinette with this colors are done in garter. Now, when you put these in, the first time you do it, you've got to make sure that you're, well, let's see. Yeah, you would be, okay, here's the back. Okay, so you would be coming in and you'd be knitting. There's your stitch is going to go up in there. Oh, good. Your stitch is going to go up in here. There's your stitch that you knitted. See? And that's when you're going back to your main color. So you want to be sure it's going to look like that because you only want to see this raised area here. You don't want to see a knit stitch coming in the color. So what I did with this was I still did my gauge. And my gauge on this is 4.5. Great shot, Katie. Very good. To make it wide enough, I had to go with my row gauge, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the inch there. What happened was, I didn't make it big enough, so I'm just going to stop and show you what I did before I explain the rest of this. Well, let me explain the rest of the sweat. So that was I was darn lucky I was able to pull this, to do this. And of course, as you know, wool does pill, so this is what I'm pulling off here. If you ever work in wool, which people don't seem to be doing much anymore because everything's been, the winters have been so warm. In this case, we have a cool summer. There is something called a knitting stone. And the knitting stone is like a pumice or something, but it's very coarse. And you just kind of rub it across, and you get the little balls off. Some people who are very sure-handed will take a little razor, a safety razor, and kind of skim across it. So what I did was I went to all my scrap yarn, and I made these stripes. Over here, instead of ribbing, and I just let it roll, I just picked this up on the edge. Here you see it. And I picked this up, and I did stockinette going this way. So it rolled up, and this is another thing that you can do. Now, of course, it's not going to look like this. If you're knitting a regular sweater and you're knitting in this direction, it will roll up, and all your stockinette will go this way. But it's going this way, and it was a great way to use up old yarn. Now, this was made quite a while ago. This is back when these hideous fur yarns were popular, and you can still get them in some places. Some people still You know, they say that what you grow up with, whatever look it is that you kind of grow up with, you never really get over it, and you always kind of go back to that. Like if it's like, I don't know, makeup or, you know, something like that, or some sort of style that you have. Yeah, see, this has got a lot of little things in it here. I'd have to go. And now, if you've been knitting for a while, you're going to have all this stuff around. But you could just make it all the same color. You could just go and buy a contrasting yarn. You could make these stripes equal. I didn't. I just kind of did it as I saw fit. I tried to spread out the colors. And that was the body. And on the back, so on the back, that's the front. On the back, I just, oh, something flew off. I just went straight up. And I bound off up here, and as stockinette will do, there's something wrong there, as stockinette will do, it rolled in. So my edge was finished, which was good. Now, and then, okay, then my armholes, okay, forget about this thing that had to be added. So I just went straight up, and here at the top I made a yoke across. Same here again, I just bound it off and it rolled down. So I already had this showing in terms of design. I already had this reverse stockinette showing at the bottom. So I said, well, I'll just do the same thing here. And there it was where I picked it up. Now, oddly enough, this is called, when they have you pick up stitches to make a ribbing on an armhole or on a neckline, they call it pick up and knit. Well, it's very confusing. All you're doing is going in, and I'll think next time I can show you that. You're just going to go in to the stitches, grab a stitch, pull it up, it's on your needle right away. You're not, it's very, I don't know why they call it that. And I think what I did here was, I think I went stitch for stitch. Now, when you're making a collar, because it's rounded, they tell you to pick up 2 stitches in every 3. So you can kind of bring it in a little bit because you want it to lie flat against, you know, your collarbone. So there's that. And now here's the disgraceful part. Well, when I went to make it up, it was too tight. And I said, what am I going to do? So fortunately, thank God, because I had all this showing, I said, all right, I'm going to make a little vent, or gusset is what it is called, actually. Little gusset. Did the same thing here to keep the continuity in the sleeve. And I put this in, and I stitched it. Okay, I'll show you in a second. So I made it, I enlarged it down here for the problem area. And I mean, it would have been better if I hadn't had to do that. I'm thankful I was able to think of how to salvage this, because otherwise it was going to be, you know, just a big disaster. And so to give myself a little border here, sorry about all these things, my goodness. When I did this, I just went in there. Let's see if I can show you. Oh, okay. I just went in here and I stitched it. Now, normally when you join parts of a pattern, you don't want to see this on the outside. But I thought, well, you know, make it look as if it was part of the design. Ah, dear. So such are the vicissitudes of not being honest with yourself about what your size is. But thank God, you know, it all worked out. So, Okay, and this was the other thing I wanted to tell you about sizing, and while I think of it, I don't know if you remember at the last class, I was telling you that if the sweater isn't big enough for you at the bust or at the hip, you merely, especially if you're working in primary stockinette stitch, and I do have the book. It was this book, it was this sweater here. All right, let me get over. Okay. Well, I guess maybe, I don't know if Katie can get a. It was this, oh, very good. It was this stitch here. And as you see, these are going every which way. And I had mentioned this the last time, was that it says if you cannot complete, if there are not enough stitches to work a complete 3-stitch cable, work in stockinette stitch instead. Now they're talking about the edge, so what you would do is you merely, now you see how this is closed, you really can barely see this. And I'm going to do that today on the little vest. So all you do is you just add on the stitches, add them on when you cast on, you add on the stitches, and you just give yourself an extra. Now remember, if you give yourself a 1/2 inch on the front and a 1/2 inch on the back, and a 1/2 inch on the other, that's 2 inches. Some sweaters are made with what they call positive ease, which means that they're going to be baggy. They're going to fit loosely on you. So, you may say to yourself, well, that ease is enough for me to fit into this. I don't need to have this be oversized. So now you may say to me, well, wait a minute now. If you're going to make this bigger out here, if you're going to bring it out here, if you're going to bring this out, what's going to happen to the shoulder? Well, if you don't adjust for it, the shoulder's going to be out here too. So what I would do when I was in that situation, I would just increase a little more, and I just sort of fit my sleeve in. And if it's one of those squared off sleeves that we've been showing you, well, I'm just going to show you, if it's going to be a situation like this with a sleeve like this, you just kind of scooch it in there. And really, to tell you the truth, when your arms are down, people are not going to see that. They're just not. So that's what you do if you need to make, and conversely, although most patterns are going to be small enough for most people, it's those of us against whom there's a great deal of bias that you might not find the size you need. Alrighty, now let's see. Okay, one of the things, let me switch to something else. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today with you was reading a pattern. So I found these patterns, and I got them enlarged so my Katie can get a good look at them. Oh, you know what? Part of this is not here. I'll go to another one. Haha. Okay. Because this is a hood. It was a hood made on this, and I'm going to bring another sweater of mine in which last sweater I showed you that I had brought in, I had put a hood on it, and I don't think it was very clear how the hood was attached. But I have another thing at home, a sleeveless vest with a hood that's very, very clear, very easy to see. I'll bring that next time. But what they've done here, I believe this is all garter, knit every row, and this is garter. And what they did with this one was they had you make it separately and attach it. I mean, that's okay. I would rather pick up the stitches around the neckline and bring that hood right up like a tube with an opening in the front and run it and attach it across the top. So and in fact, they worked with two balls of yarn. We'll look at that next week since I didn't get the whole thing copied. Okay, now this is a sweater that all of you can make. Now, I'm not saying you're going to jump around and run out and start making this without practicing your knitting. You've got to. And you've got to get enough control that you feel confident that you're not going to drop stitches and so forth. However, I'm going to show you cable stitches today. This is stockinette, cable. There's your ribbing. The sleeve is, sorry, here. Oh, God help me. Okay, I think, well, I guess maybe I didn't hit the easy button the right way or something. I didn't get, okay, but the sleeve is a drop sleeve. And so it goes right in there, much the way this one would. I can tell you, I can guarantee you that the sleeve on that cable sweater is going to look like this. And it's so simple that this is the whole pattern. But it's nice to have somebody sit down with you and have you read a pattern so that you don't look at, oh my God, what is this? And then you give up. You don't want to do that. Okay. Now, this is, okay, single rib stitch, knit one, purl one every row. And I guess they think they're not going to bother to tell you here you purl over the knit and you knit over the purl. I guess they think you know that and that you're going to look at this and you're going to say, oh yes, that is, sorry, that's this. Okay? They're assuming that you know that that's this. Okay? Oh, yeah, here it is. This little one's in here. All right. So let's read through this one. And it's a cable pattern here. Okay? That's this. So let's just read through it. I'll demonstrate the cable. And the instructions for the cable is right here. It says, blah, blah, blah. Twist the cables on each knit 6. Slip 3 stitches onto cable needle, hold in back of work, knit 3 stitches from left hand needle, and then knit stitches from the cable needle. But I'll show you that. All right, so as you look here, small, medium, and large, okay, the finished measurement, 46. Now, in my case, I would probably rather have that to be 48, and there's no problem with this because, as you can see, this is just stockinette around here. See, this cable ends here. Sometimes they don't do a good job photographing these, but this cable ends here. This is stockinette. All I'm going to do is put, let's see, my gauge is, okay, now this is pure absurdity. I don't know who the heck or who the hell came up with this, because this is insanity. Cabled pieces, okay. 16.8 stitches by 21 rows is 4 inches. How in the world you're going to find 0.8 stitch, with yarn like this? And it's just ridiculous. Now the stockinette gauge is 16 stitches to 4 inches. That's 4 stitches to the inch. I'll just write that here. So they want you to do a gauge for the cable. Now, I don't know, you might remember I mentioned to you that when you're doing some of these complicated cables, and this is not a complicated cable, when you're doing some of these complicated, you may want to do that gauge. Or let's say that you get a little brave and you're making a sweater that's all stockinette in the front, leave it plain in the back, and you want to put in a panel, which is actually something that I've got here in this pattern, which I'll show you. They're showing you different choices of things to put as panels on the sweater. I thought it was, let's see, I think I've got the picture here. Hang on. This reminds me of when I was teaching, that we wouldn't get the right copies. Anyway, but these are panels that will go into this sweater. So so anyway, I'm going to end right here for the moment. So there's where they tell you the gauge, okay? I would do 17 stitches to 4 inches. And sometimes, you know, you just don't get that perfect gauge. And then you've got to say to yourself, well, am I running a little smaller? Am I running a little larger? You know, what am I going to do? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break. You're going to get a cup of tea and stay right there. Don't go outside. I don't know if it's sunny or rainy, but don't go outside. Just stay with me because it's really important to learn how to read a pattern. So we'll be right back.
Shoo-up, shoo-ah, hey honey, shoo-up, shoo-ah. Look, see, shoo-up, shoo-ah. It's funny, shoo-up, wop, how silly love can be. Down, diddy, down, da, down, da, down, diddy, diddy, down, diddy, down, da, down, do-ah, do-ah, down, diddy, down, da, down. You're so pretty, pretty, down, diddy, down, da, down.
Welcome back from recess. Now, this is the only school where people are glad, the students are glad to come in from recess, I hope. Okay, we were talking about reading a pattern, okay, and I had stopped here talking about this ridiculous gauge situation here. And I was kind of hesitant to show this to you because of this, but like I said, I would go with 17 stitches is 4 inches. Okay, now over here. They're showing you the pattern stitches. Cables, okay. See cable pattern in back instructions below. So this sweater has cables in the back, which they don't show you here. Now what a lot of people do, pardon me, especially if you've got a yarn situation or you just want to be very comfortable with the project, a lot of people just put the cables on the front. I mean, you see that in manufactured sweaters, very common. All right, so now, all right, here we're going, let's just look at this. It's cast on, all right, 88, 92, 96. If you look back over here, that means that's for the 88 is a small size to cast on, for the medium, 92, and for the large, 96. All right, single rib for 1 1/4 inches. All right, now they're showing you the cable pattern, but we're not going to talk about that now because I'm going to show you a cable. Okay, repeat this 8-row pattern to 20 1/4 inches. Again, 20 1/4 for the small, 21 1/4 for the medium, 22 1/4 for the large. Now that's length. Then single rib for 3/4 inch, bind off all stitches in pattern. And this, I tell you, this is a great sweater to make because some people don't look good in a boat neck. I don't think I do, but you know, it will be a nice way for you to make yourself a sweater and not have to worry about your you know, your decreases and so. But well, let me go and show you. I've got a swatch here of knit one, purl one. I'm going to have to move something around here. I'm going to show you the bind off for knit one, purl one. Very simple. Actually, I've done it before, but I'm going to show you again. So I'm just going to, okay, just going to put this. Now I was making a swatch during recess. Okay, so I'm just going to put that back there. Okay, and so here's my knit one, purl one. When you bind off and knit one, purl one. Now, I'm just thinking of something that just occurred to me. Okay, they want you to bind off in pattern. That wouldn't be binding off in ribbing. So that would be knit, go to the purl. This is your pattern. You bind off. Knit again. Bring this over. And you've bound off the stitch. You can kind of start to see it there. a little bit, sorry. Well, I'll do some more. So I have a knit coming up, over, and there you see. And it's interesting that the cast on of this looks very different. There it is, very good, from the way the bind off looks. I suppose that's to be expected. Now, if you were, I'm going to do one more here, because I'm sure you all are getting the idea. Now, that's going to allow, let me do one more. That's going to allow that to stretch, be stretchy. Now, if I were to just do a knitting bind off, not in the pattern, let's see how that's going to react. That should be, and again, I've got everything knotted up here because I'm doing these swatches. So I'm doing regular bind off. All right. Okay. Now, and I pull this through. Okay. Now, well, you know, I probably should have had a bigger, this is going to be stretchier than this. And I don't know if, I mean, I'm feeling it. I don't know if you can really see it, but you see how this doesn't move? This will move. And on this sweater, as I'm looking at it, I think what they should have told you to do, since this comes down all the way down here, and the weight of the sleeve is on it, I think what they should have told you to do was to do a regular bind off, the non-stretchy one, not in the pattern, up to here, and do the stretchy one here where you need the room for your head. Because I think that this will just drag it right down. I mean, I'm virtually positive of that. And the other thing you can always do, if you've got a sleeve like this where the shoulder is dropped, you can always go inside, and you see this on better sweaters that are manufactured, and you can just get a piece of any kind of ribbon, and you, right after you've made it, and you just sew that ribbon, you know, you would just tack it on with needle and thread, and sew that ribbon right here, and that ribbon will not stretch, and that will hold this. And that's another kind of good thing to know about. But I mean, I just saw that done in commercial sweaters. And so, to tell you the truth, I've never actually done that on any of my sweaters yet, but when the day comes, that's what all right. So, all righty. So now, okay, front works same as back. Simple. And that would be, looking at it, okay, this is the way it would look. This is what you would be talking about. This is a different pattern, but this is what it would be, a big rectangle. And if you remember, that's what I was doing to calculate the yarn, was just considering it a rectangle. Even if there was some of the sleeve that was brought in, I just, to get the maximum amount of square inches possible. All right. Now, sleeves, cast on. Okay. I find sometimes I would cast on the ribbing at a sleeve, and I would maybe run a piece of thread through it. And by that I simply mean, for example, here, where I was binding this off, just simply take a length of yarn and just take a crochet hook or whatever and just run it through, or take a separate piece of yarn. It doesn't have to be your own yarn, because frankly you'd have to cut it and you don't want to do that. So just grab any kind of a piece of yarn and run it through, and just hold your, just, you know, and of course obviously it'd be bigger than this, and just, you know, cast on the 34 stitches and see if it's tight enough for you, because sometimes they make kind of a loose, You might have a small wrist, or they might, sometimes they make it a little too loose, or maybe if you want to pull it up. All right. Okay, so cast on. Okay, small, medium, large, single rib for 1 1/4 inches. Now you can make that as much as you want. If you're not worried about your yarn, and remember ribbing uses more yarn than stockinette does, you can make that much deeper if you want to have a turned back cuff. Work in stock, increase 1 stitch each side every 6th row till you get up to 19 inches. Which I think is a long sleeve. I really do. Especially where it's down here, coming down like this. I would, and what I always did was I would always try to sort of hold it up on myself, run a yarn through, catch the stitches with a piece of yarn, and I would hold it up to me. But my arms are not particularly long. Now, so now I don't have the diagram for this, but see the sleeve they're showing you is essentially this, and 18 inches across. Now they're assuming in this pattern. The more I look at this pattern, the less I like. They're assuming that when you get to 19 inches, it's going to be the width of the sleeve you want. That's not necessarily so. It could be wider, it could be not as wide. So here, if you look at this one, and this is from the same book, so I drew a little line in here, so it's 18 inches in the large size, which means that each armhole is going to go down 9 inches. So you're going to have 9 and 9. In the large size. Suppose you feel like that sleeve is getting too wide, and I know I showed you, I'm sorry everybody, sorry. I showed you that mistake I made on the sleeve on that hoodie. Let's say you don't want it to be as wide as it's getting to be. Well, you can just, or as long. Let's say you've gotten up to here, and you're saying, well, wait a minute now. I don't want this to be so wide. I don't want such a deep armhole. You can stop, and then all you do is you just work straight. Well, I didn't make this. Nobody is going to see that this, and this is a very, very relaxed slope anyway. It's not steep. So nobody's going to see that you went in there and you just did this. Now, a lot of times with the V-necks that I make, and here's an example here. Again, I mean, I'm talking about V-necks because we're talking about increasing and shaping. So, and here they've actually want you to do it this way. If I want to make a deep armhole, and I see that on that pattern, how steep that reduction is going to be, that V, how sharply this is coming up. Well, all I need to do, and I've done this many times, I just work straight up. When you put your ribbing in here, you will not see it. In fact, I might have even done that with that other one over there. So, knitting is forgiving in that way. It really is. And let me just show you one. Okay, let's say, let me show you, as we will look at these other patterns. The other thing I wanted to do, and I don't have the matching yarn. I don't know where it went. Let's do it. Let's do the cable stitch. Okay. I'm going to pull this guy off. This is a size 7. And this is a 7. Okay, so let these guys go back here. Okay. Cable stitch. And I had my, oh, there it is. Okay. Here's the cable needle. I don't like using these because, well, I'll show you in a minute. Thing about the cables, it's very, very easy to do. Very easy. You always have reverse stockinette on both sides. I made this wide And you can make it wide. You can have, for example, on this one here, I'm trying to, let's see. On this one, it's not wide at all. It's barely there. Can you see? Okay. Yeah, it's barely there, but it is in there. So that's something that's just part and parcel of cables. Sometimes you see cables, well, you know, I tell a lie. I've seen patterns where it's kind of just right into the stockinette. I mean, I don't know if I've ever done that one, but it's right in the stock. You don't see any reverse stockinette at all. But typically, you want to showcase the cable with this contrasting stitch. Now, when you are counting your number of rows on a cable, you want to be sure that you're doing it the same number of rows each time. If you're not going to sit down with a pencil and paper, there's also a gizmo, and I found one at the house, and I don't know where it went. There's a certain level of chaos at my house. They make these things that you put right on your needle, and it's a little counter that you can turn. Problem with that is if you're knitting and you're watching the TV and you're talking and so forth, you might not remember to go down here and do this. I feel like if you have paper and pen, you've got to pick that up, and I think you'll remember to do that and keep your tally. I mean, it doesn't need to be anything more, than this. Each time you do your cable. So the other way to count this is, and I really don't recommend this. This is for the lazy. This is if you're really lazy about, and I have gotten lazy, because I'm one of those people, and I'm rolling around, flying around all over the place on a pension. I haven't taught school since June of '06, and I was mentioning earlier that I was just so exhausted from those shoots yesterday. I thought, my goodness, what's happened to you? Here's what you can do. I'm going to hold, okay, there we go. Let me show this. Hold this so Katie can really see this. Okay. Get in here. You can look at this, right, this little place right there, and you can say, okay, I see this first stitch. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to stop here because I see this one coming across the back. You're better off writing it down. You really are. But when I was going over to Staples with it's in the car, with this book to have these patterns enlarged so you could see them. I was at home and I was tearing up pieces of paper to mark the pages, and I was thinking that I should have had, and I don't even see it here now, I should have had here it is, I could have used my sticky, many of you that came to Norfolk Day got these. When you come in here, there's a lot of these around, these little sticky pages to put on here. Of course, in the old days, these things didn't exist. And so I was kind of laughing about it, and I said, gee, I'm using, this is the old, sort of crude method of marking a page. And, with my students, sometimes, I used to, and I have to say, I miss the hijinks to some extent. I mean, it was pretty bad where I worked for most of the time. The last year, the headmaster was, he was pretty good. He really was supportive of the teachers, and he had his head on his shoulders. But some of the other ones, he was just unbelievable. And so I used to say to them, all right, we can do this the nice way, the refined way, the normal way, or we can do it the old brutish way, meaning, I can let you stay here, you can behave, act like, dignified human beings, and we can go on with the lesson, or, I can start sending people out, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of funny because some of them used to shout out, they would say, the old brutish way, do it the old brutish way. I tell you, you have no idea. It was some really crazy times. All right. Okay, so now here I am. Now, I started it down here. Okay. Started down here. There was my first twist. There's my second. And now I'm going to So I just finished a twist. Let me show you the back. I hope I'm not knitting too fast for you. I'm assuming that you have watched the shows and are practicing. I've got about 10 minutes, so hopefully I can get up to... All right, so there. Okay, now look at it on the back, and it looks like that. Doesn't look too good. There's something called reverse cables. I don't think I've ever done them, but I think it's also pretty cool. It's going to look like a different cable on the back, and it would have to. And it would have to be in reverse stockinette. I don't know how it's done. All right, so over here. Yeah, I've always said, you know, I kept logs, and a lot of the log keeping that was done by teachers in the Boston Public Schools was people were keeping logs on other teachers that they wanted to get in trouble, whose career they wanted to ruin, or what have you. And I remember the head of the Boston Teachers Union once talking to me, and he said, there are people who keep logs on logs. Well, I kept my logs on the kids simply because there was so much chaos and mayhem and so much running amok that there was no way I could remember it all when the time came to recount the deeds to the parents. So I'm going to do another row here. You know, now I wish I had been writing down these rows. Okay. You know something? I think see now here I'm not doing what I'm telling you to do. I think I'm going to go back. I think I've gone too far. I'm going to go back. I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to make the cable. And then hopefully we'll have time to make another cable so you can see this. Now it takes a little dexterity. All right, okay. So I've got a 6-stitch cable. Okay. Now, okay, they want you, see, this is why I don't like to use this thing. Okay, so I'm going to take, I'll use it and show you. So you take 3 going back. Now, obviously, you're going to want to go right to left, okay? And then it goes down, and it's out of the way. And then you proceed and you knit over here. But now what am I supposed to do? Knit with this little end? So that's why I've never liked using these things. What I like to use, and I'll go to the trusty nerd bag, is an ordinary, see here's another cable needle for smaller stitches. And this has a little more space, but even so, to me, there's not enough room to be knitting on this little thing here. I don't know. It's something I don't know. Must be something wrong with me. I don't know, because that's most of the ones that you see. Some you see. Okay, I'm going to take this out. So I'm going to take my knitting pin like that. There I am. And now this I can turn a. Oh, wait a minute now. Now you know what? Same problem. I wouldn't have, okay, same problem, oh boy. Well, if I went like this, that would be no problem at all. And, you know, granted it could slide out, but chances are it's not going to do that. And the other way you can make sure it doesn't do that is use a slightly larger. Now this is a smaller needle than 7. In fact, let's see what this says on here. This is a 5, and I'm working with a 7. So, you know, if you wanted to work with like a 7, it would be tight enough. So take this back, Go here, snug it up, knit 3, take this needle here, bring it down, and knit those stitches right off of it. And that's your twist. And that's your cable. And I you know, see, I was right not to do another couple of rows. That's what you have to remember, because you've got to do it on just the one side. Alrighty. And it does pull in. I don't know if you can kind of see that, but it does pull in over on that side now. Now okay, now if you look at this, okay, these are all, my God, I'm getting discombobulated with this the way I used to do at school. All right, see, these are cables here on a chart. And so here you see where they've shown you, okay, here's your code, knit on the right side, purl on the wrong side, so that's all stockinette. Okay, and then in here, where this is doing this, that's your twist. So it says 1 and 1 to the right, twist what you're going to twist in 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 1 in the front to the right, and on 1 and 1 on the left, and RPC. Oh, this must be purling, right? Purl cable. God, I don't know what that is. I got to tell you. And you see them down here. There they are again. So that would be a cable there, a twist there, and then this one's coming over here. It's a stockinette, and see there's and they're showing you the little pattern here. So and there's your twist, you know, right in there. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. It really is. So I think we're just about to finish up here. Now, what I didn't get to do, and I absolutely will do, is next week I'm going to put this together. So I'm going to show you how to join the seams. That took me a little while to learn how to do. You want to make an invisible seam. Okay, I don't need to worry about this. My armhole is all. So if you remember, I showed you this type of way to do the neckline. I think this looks much nicer, so I'm probably going to pull that out, and we'll consider this to be the front of the vest. Okay, so we're going to have to attach here and here, and down the side. So I hope it wasn't too much confusion. As I say, I was wiped last night. I didn't get to do the preparation. I'm still missing some of my sheets, but there's going to be another class after this one. So thank you for watching. Thanks to Donna, Mr. Steve Gay, and of course my Katie, who does the great shots of my knitting. So we'll see you next time. Thank you for being my student at the Norfolk Knitting School.
My bee, shoo-up, my sugar, shoo-up, my little butter bean.
Down diddy down 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 diddy diddy down down do I do it down diddy down down. It's so pretty down diddy down down. Ain't it funny how fun